Yeah. Did you share the link?
Oh, hold on a second. We'll get you started first.
Oh, I was going to share the link, so if I was going to share the link before I get started. So sorry.
Okay, that just came out of my personal Twitter.
Right now.
All right, everybody. This is all right, everybody. Let's get started. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I know we have a very informal process. This is actually a lot better than it has been for the last year or so. We're getting more and more structure as it goes on. We have different, I suppose I should start with introductions. Welcome to WordPressDC. We do this every third Tuesday. Thank you to Chief for sponsoring. The location is always is a tremendous venue. They also supply the alcohol. And thank you to our long-term member. We have Cheeto for giving us the pizza for tonight. We can just give both of them a little support. Thank you very much. My name is Casey. I'm one of 8 co-organizers around here. You can just ask anybody, and you'll run into a co-organizer if you have a question at all. So let's do, like I said, third Tuesdays. Yeah, let's get right into it. Tonight we got Brian Jesse speaking first. His talk is the hidden benefit of difficult customers. He's a freelance web developer by trade and a support agent for Modern Tribe. And a developer for them. So let's give it up for Brian Jesse. And the peanut gallery back there, just come sit, relax, and ready to do anything you watch. Did it move?
No, I got it on.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
This on. I don't think the microphone's on. Do you need to adjust the volume on the microphone or microphone?
There's a switch.
Yeah, I got it on.
Okay, yes. It's okay, it says.
Can you hear me now?
No. Maybe close up. Yeah. It's got yellow.
Too high.
Lower.
Flip your collar.
It's not working, use one of these.
Like it?
If you just talk louder, I think it'll pick up. Yeah.
You adjust the volume now?
Yeah.
I'll just start. Okay, so my talk is the hidden benefits of difficult customers. My name is Brian Jesse. You can find the slides at jesseproductions.com. I didn't put them on Twitter yet. You can follow me on Twitter if you like. All right, so I am an independent developer. Been freelance for over 4 years now. Work for myself. I also work for Modern Tribe doing development and support. I have my own plugin, the Coupon Creator Pro and Coupon Creator, which I support and develop myself, and I support and develop the events calendar. So this is kind of all my experiences for the past 4 years doing this stuff. So I want to talk about support as a feedback loop, talk about setting expectations for support, including terms of service, pricing, replies, more, and types of exchanges that I've had and real life examples. We've got the shoulds, the lashers, and more. And also I'll talk about some support deals and WordPress plugins I use for support. So starting off, support is a feedback loop. It can help you get information about your plugin, your service, or anything like that. And it provides feedback to customers, potential customers, it can provide feedback to the developers, and even the support team. And there's different things you can learn from them. But the key thing is, it's difficult in customer interactions to potentially show where to improve, but the key word is potentially. Not all difficult customers can help. And I focused on difficult customers because if you have a good customer, they come through, they have the plugin, they go through, you don't learn anything from them. But it's difficult ones that might show you where your interaction, where your plugins are failing, someplace you can improve. So starting with difficult customers, there's a good thing to set expectations for them. If you don't have good expectations, you might create more difficult customers than you actually already have. So I like to set expectations to under-promise but over-deliver, especially in WordPress, where there's, so I can't promise anyone that I can do customizations, but I might be able to help people on customizations. However, I've set an expectation to say I'm not going to do terms of service. I'm setting an expectation I'm not going to do any customizations, but I can go and maybe help someone out and it just be an extra benefit for them, but it's not something I can actually promise. So the first thing of setting expectations is your terms of service. If you look at any major plugin out there, they have a terms of service. You agree to it when you buy the license, whether you like to or not. Terms of service is a place for you to outline the support. You outline what you do support, what you don't support. You can give examples of what you support. You can also outline your policies. Do you have a refund policy? How fast can people expect support? An important thing to remember about terms of service, it is a legally binding agreement. People can be sued over it and have been sued over it. So it's important to consult a lawyer when you're doing it. It's not to scare someone, but it is something that you want to make sure you have everything in there to cover yourself, to protect yourself if something should happen. The next part about expectations are pricing. You want to set an expectation of your support and your features. So if you set a really high price and you don't have many good features and you don't respond to people really well in support, don't provide good support, you're probably not setting the right expectation. If you don't want to provide support things, there's a place for that, WordPress.org. You can provide support for bugs there, make sure it's working basically, but beyond that, you're kind of letting people on their own. If you're selling a plugin, you're going to want to look to provide more support to people, more timely support. I know WordPress.org usually wait a week to respond to some issues. Or a commercial plugin, if you're going past 24 hours, you're probably not providing good support. Another part of setting expectations is your feature list. How many features are you actually supporting out there? What are actually people reading? Are they reading the correct features that you have in your plugin? If you don't, any of these areas can create difficult customers for you. The final part about setting expectations is your replies and reviews. All your replies set a tone of support. People see you're condescending to everyone, you're just attacking people, they see that they're going to expect that from you, they might not use your product, and also the speed of responses. So in a restaurant, 30 minutes is a long time to wait for support. You might end up with ketchup on your table if you waited 30 minutes to talk to somebody. However, if you're in the WordPress world, you can wait some time. You have 24 hours usually, I'd say, is a good policy. You can do it less. If you're going to do less, you should know that it's going to cost you more. You should charge more for your customers. So after you set expectations, you kind of go out and now it's something to turn to when you have difficult customers to support. So the first people I have are the shoulds. Now, not every should is actually a good source of features, but many of them can be a great source of features. I've learned a lot from my customers because of that. But as the most interesting man in the world says, not every should is a real should. You got to be careful and not try to include everything people are asking in your plugin. Some is not feasible, some it's not. But some of these people, they'll respond like this to you. Why doesn't it do this? It should be easy. To this, I have a sign that it's going to be a beginning customer or a beginning coder or something like that, and you've provided something that's really advanced to them, and now they're trying to add a simple feature, maybe it's an advanced feature, and they think it should just be a couple hours work. When most times, even the simplest feature, adding on a big plugin, essentially like something like the events calendar, is going to take at least 10 hours of work after you go through QA, testing, and everything else like that. So it's not ever easy to add something, but it's something to be, maybe they have a good idea. Another thing about the should, sometimes they'll say we requested a feature for 2 years, and then it's still not added. Why isn't it there? There could be a million reasons. There's a way to handle these people, but there's also a way to say maybe they still have a good idea. And then how can this plugin not have this feature? This goes back to the expectation of your feature list. Sometimes people are looking for a feature they think is an essential feature to something, but maybe it's just not included. Obviously, they've asked a question. So this to me is a sign that maybe you need to go back and look at your feature list and say, I need to specifically exclude this or specifically add this to make sure we don't keep getting questions about it. So for all these shoulds, I find they're a great new source of features, but I never want to promise that I'm going to add these new features and not deliver. So I never give out timelines, and I know the events calendar, we never give out timelines for new features because we don't know when we're actually going to deliver it until it's actually a beta or a release candidate. And we've gotten cut, like that quote that said it was asked for 2 years ago. Someone might have promised it was in the next release. The next release is now 10 releases later and it's still not in it. Now we've created more support work for ourselves by promising it but not delivering. And a lot of times it should also be perfect for this project. It be perfect for their own project, not anyone else's project. You don't want to add things to your plugin and deal with these people if it's just working for their project alone. You want to provide something that reads a wide range of people. So I usually, when I respond to these people to get benefit of, I set the support expectations. I go back and say, hey, we can't support this. We're not going to be able to help you add this feature to our website. It's a customization. It's beyond what we can provide. So I'll try to set that immediately. And then I'll go back and not promise a timeline, but I'll maybe say, well, one thing we do I personally keep track of it in Xmind for my plugin, but that's just me. And we're for the events calendar, we use user voice, and we send people there to vote on features they want to use. And that way we can get a track of that and we can start supporting those best features and add them to the plugin. And a good question I always like to ask is what do you believe you would have that feature? So find out from them why they think this feature is in there. Maybe if there's confusing words on your feature list. Maybe there's something else you supported and let them to believe that. Some place that you can maybe come back and clarify so that you can stop having the same support questions. So those are the shoulds. And next, the lashers. These are the people that are frustrated with you. These people they expected it to work one way, and now they're coming back at you, and they're either angry, they're lashing out at you. So now it's time to have to deal with them, and maybe potentially find a place that you can actually fix and get rid of this in the future. So this first person was having an issue with a coupon not showing for the coupon creator on WordPress.org. You don't have to pay for it. The statement is just attacking you. But the problem was he was trying to include a shortcode in a widget. In WordPress, you need to add a filter for shortcodes to work in a text widget. So I presented that back to him. I kind of ignored this statement. But it was something to help him out, and I kind of looked through. I already have an FAQ, that statement that says that you need to add this filter for shortcodes to work. So I don't know if there's not much I can really learn from that. However, I can learn that I just professionally replied to him, gave him a little solution, and that was it. This next person was an email, and she wants me to explain why every tech company refuses to have a contact number. Obviously, I can't explain for any other tech company. Obviously, it's very rare for a tech company to actually have a phone support because it's really, a lot of us don't have the demand for it. It's really hard and expensive to have phone support. So something like this, I would just ignore it and get to her issue. Her issue was she was having issues with plugins being out of date. That's what I went after, and I just ignored the statement completely. This one was actually a review for the events calendar on WordPress.org. And we were able to turn this review from a 1-star review to a 4-star review. And the way we did it was, again, he lashed out at it. He was having issues. And so we came back and he kind of changed it to this. It's a paraphrase of basically what he said. We were able to do it by being specific. We asked for specifics. Every time he made a statement, we asked for specifics back. He was saying we were being condescending. Well, we apologized for it. We asked for specifics. He unfortunately never actually provided specifics. But I think it got him thinking enough every time that we were able to get down to the issue. And it turned out he was using the plugin on 3 different sites and 3 different themes, and it was creating all these conflicts. And each time it was coming, we kind of said theme compatibility is not something we can really support. And so it kind of set him off, and we were able to walk it back. And eventually, again, turn a 1-star review to a 4-star review. And one good question we asked him was, willing to share some light on your frustrations. And we try to ask for examples. Get things talking, ask for specifics. Don't let them make general statements about you. Ask for specifics and see if you can find some place that you can improve. So I find the lashers are a lot of places that you can improve your support tools. Some of them there, if the events calendar, we do only forum support. If we send them from email to forums, we've had issues where those people have gone back and lashed at us because they couldn't find the correct way to post in the forum. That's someplace maybe we could look to improve. You can set a tone. If someone's coming back all the time saying you're condescending or you're being a dick to people, maybe that's something you can improve. Or not. Guides and documentations. If people are coming back with issues with your guides and documentations and lashing back at you, maybe that's some place to improve. And of course, your products as well. I know one thing we had to improve was the license key saving. It's actually a two-step process, but people want to skip that second saving step, and then we have to get it into support, and then it creates more support because they think the program plugin's not working because the license key is not active. So it creates more issues. So now we've gone in and improved that. So now it's saved itself. We don't have to worry about that. Again, because people are lashing back at us. And so, like I said, ignore statements you can't help it. I can't help that other tech companies don't have phone numbers. I can't do anything about it. I'm just going to ignore it, and I'm going to solve the real issue. That's what the important part is. So, next people are the exaggerators. The exaggerators are kind of lashers, and then they've gone to the next level. And these people are more people are going to have to call out bad behavior with. So this first one is probably the worst email I've gotten doing support ever. And I even cut out some other bad stuff. So obviously none of these things are true, or else we wouldn't be sold a single plugin in the world. But it's something that now this person's come out and attacked us. They've exaggerated their issue and they've exaggerated the problem. And this was a problem actually. They went from email to the forums and they couldn't find a way in, and now they've come back and gone after us. So and then this next person here, they did all caps. So now they're essentially yelling at us to provide support. And I mean, and they're exaggerating their issue. It was actually a JavaScript conflict with their theme. And they didn't want to do any testing, anything to fix it. But now they're basically giving us an ultimatum. So for these people, the first thing I like to say is trust but verify. Sometimes they're going to have legitimate issues. You want to come back to them and trust. When you trust but verify is just a fancy way of saying you don't trust them. I had an issue one time where a person was having an issue with permalinks, and they weren't working on their site for recurring events. And we went back and forth over 2 weeks. And the first thing I asked them to do was test for conflicts, change themes, and disable all plugins. They said they did that fine, so we kept going to more and more difficult things. In the end, I said, I can't figure this out. Just send me your website, complete backup and database. And I did the steps myself, and within 5 minutes, I found the problem. They were flushing permalinks on every load of the page, which you're never supposed to do, which was killing it. So they obviously didn't follow the first steps and on step number 1, and here it is 2 weeks later we went through. So after that, I don't trust people. I want to verify with them. I want to see that they've changed the themes. I want to see that. So I want them to provide proof to me that they're doing something, especially if they're being exaggerating issues, especially if they're lashing out at me. Next part about them, the first guy is very easy to label customers. He called us everything bad under the sun. You should see the first email I sent him. I wanted to send him. It would have been really nasty. But I deleted that and took a step back, and I called out his disrespectful behavior. I apologized that he was having an issue, and then I said, it's not respectful for this. You can't act like this to us. If you want to act to us like a person, that's fine, we'll deal with the issue. And actually, after I called him out, I went back and I explained what his problem was. It was actually a theme conflict, a custom template in his theme, and we never heard from him again. So I don't know how he took it, but at least he's still a customer. And a good quote to remember is, sometimes those people, when they come at you, you might get frustrated, you might get angry yourself, but you're frustrated because of your belief. So he's frustrated because he believes something should be working, and now he's attacking you, but you don't have to be frustrated because it's not attacking you personally. So if you can remember that, or maybe take a step back, you can come back and help these people and not go back and label them and maybe call out their behavior, because it shouldn't be tolerated. Next people, the unreasonables. These people now, they've gone beyond what you can actually maybe resolve, and either they're not going to calm down, maybe it's time to use your refund policy. The first person, it actually seems like a pretty reasonable statement until you realize he wants to have a locally running site that doesn't connect to the internet at all, but the add-on he wants to use needs to connect to eventbrite.com. It's impossible. It needs to connect to Eventbrite to work. So he's now being unreasonable. So basically, this is a great place to have a refund policy. Some people say, well, it's a digital product. Once you have it, and then you can say you can get a refund. I've never found that to be the case where people have a refund, and I find that it will be harder to actually ask for a refund after every update. We released 5 updates in 2 months for the events calendar. You would have to pay for it 5 different times. I think we've realized that. So a great thing for unreasonables is maybe all right, well, here's your refund policy, follow it, and we can give you your money back, and we don't have to worry about it. This next person, she actually had a very legitimate issue, and it seems like at first, yes, customers are a priority, But we've now gone back and I said, set expectations. We said our support is this. We're gonna provide it by forums, we're gonna do a response within 24 hours. She's now used this statement on Twitter to try to get us, to badger us to support her before everyone else. She doesn't want to follow what we've set out. So we set expectations again. We said, hey, this is our system. If you don't want to follow it, we can't. And then this is what she returned with. So this is, again, another great one for a refund policy. You're like, unfortunately, we can't help you. We're not going to let you use Twitter or anyone else use Twitter to badger us to support you quicker. So with these people, and like any of them, be professional. It can be easy, like how could you not know you needed to use the internet to use this add-on? Like it makes sense, but you need to call them out like that. Just be professional, let them know what the issue is. Again, you can go back to outlining your support expectations. Say, hey, this is how we provide support. This is what we can do. Stand your ground. Don't let them come back at you and attack you and try to change your support system. You have it set up. If you want to change it for everybody. Don't change it for one person. And then you can ask where you set the expectations wrong. Sometimes maybe in your product list, sometimes out there, you're setting the wrong expectation, then people are getting unreasonable ideas of what you want. And a lot of these, or any of these, wait to reply. You don't need to reply back and forth. I find on Twitter, we have the worst interchanges when we reply back and forth on things, and it goes downhill quick. So you don't have to respond to people right away. Cool yourself down, let them cool down, especially if they're making unreasonable demands. Now, beginner support. It's difficult support because sometimes it can really, people can take things literally or they don't understand what's going on. Kind of like the Cookie Monster. He doesn't know he's not really deleting cookies, but people that are supporting themselves, that know anything about coding, anything, they just not want it to work, they're gonna have issues. You have to explain to them exactly what they're actually doing. So we've got this guy. So we provided this guy with a snippet to customize the events calendar. And then it crashed his site. It crashed his site because he had an opening PHP tag included twice without a closing one. That's a simple thing to know once you've known coding, but he doesn't know coding well. You can tell he's a beginner because of that. And so, yes, I understand we caused a problem to him, but at the same time, now it's something to rethink. Do we need to provide more explanation? Do we need to have less opening PHP tags with all our snippets so we don't cause this problem with beginners? Because now we've created another thing for us to support. Another support question someone's had. They said for a silly question, but it's not. I mean, it's not. I mean, people don't know what resaving permalinks are if you've never done it. Everyone in this room at one time didn't know what that means. So they're just a beginner. They're just trying to learn. But now you've got to go explain it to them. So with them, with beginners, it's the curse of knowledge. You don't remember what it's like to not know when you didn't know something. It's hard for you to imagine again that you didn't know what permalinks are, or you didn't know that you needed to add PHP tags. So you got to think about it from the beginner's perspective. You actually got to put yourself in that frame of mind. Maybe when you're creating documentation, when you're creating support, or when you're providing support. And for a lot of these, predefined responses and troubleshooting guides are a great benefit to this. If you can prevent, here's how what permalinks are, here's how you resave them. If you create it once as a guide, you can send it to anybody. And they're difficult customers because they need more help, they can take more time than anyone else. And so you're spending more time on basic issues that you could maybe group and create a response or troubleshooting guide for, instead of having to do it every single time these people come in. So where do you provide support? So there's forums. BBPress is a good forum. At Modern Tribe, we use a hybrid ticket system with BBPress. Basically allows us to assign tickets to support teams, and we can close the tickets, and it notifies us every time that someone's responded, and we can see the last time someone responded to time. So we're able to meet our goal of responding to everyone within 24 hours, and when someone responds back, it's in our queue, we can personally respond back. So things don't get lost. I think that was one of the biggest things about regular forums is just issues getting lost in them. And then email or help scout. Either one's fine. For my plugin, I have such low support for the Coupon Creator Pro that I just use email. I don't want to pay for anything else. I can respond. It's just me. I do use Google Apps for my email, and I use a plugin called Streak for it, so I can schedule the emails. So if someone emails me back, I don't want to respond back immediately. I'll always respond back an hour or 2 hours later, so I can control what they expect for me to respond to. Help Scout, I guess I can say, is the hybrid ticketing system in email. We also use Help Scout on Modern Tribe for account access and other issues like that. And it basically allows you to do the same thing, to schedule email, or not schedule emails, to group conversations. You can assign different people to it. It's another way to track people so that their responses don't get lost. I don't really have a benefit for all of them. I would say before I started Modern Tribe, I would have gone to Help Scout first. But now the one thing I do miss, like Gravity forums used to have all these great snippets in their forum, and they're nowhere to be found anymore because they've gone completely to Help Scout. So I would prefer almost a public ticketing system than I would to use Help Scout, just because you can get that benefit of customizations and snippets there going out there. Social media, the one thing I would say about social media is get people off social media. You can't provide support there, especially on Twitter. 140 characters is a place for people to rant. It's not a place for you to diagnose technical issues. The worst exchanges we've ever had have been on Twitter. We get them off Twitter and into where we're supposed to provide support. It kind of leads to the next thing is you want to funnel all customers into the same channel. Whatever it is, whatever you choose, you want to get them all there so you can provide the same experience and make sure you reduce creating difficult customers just because they can't get to your support system. So some plugins I use for support. The first one, Plugin Logic, is enables you to disable a plugin by URL. I used it recently for the events calendar. Someone was having an issue. They wanted to use this plugin, but it was breaking all the maps. And this way we were able to disable the plugin and all the event pages, and they could use it somewhere else, but it wasn't screwing around with the events calendar. The plugin organizer I haven't used, but it's similar lines. You can disable plugins or reorder plugins on how they load. Bulk deactivate allows you to deactivate and then take that list and just reactivate it really quickly. So it's a great way to deactivate all your plugins or a certain set of plugins and come back. Query Monitor is one of my favorite for just debugging. WP Control allows you to see what crons are running on your site. If a plugin runs a cron, it's a great way to test that. And then Theme Test is a newer plugin to change themes for logged-in users. So you can use that to, instead of, you get a lot of times on a live site, you need to change the theme to actually diagnose the issue or see it to narrow it down. That way, only logged-in users see a different theme and regular customers can actually do that. Some browser extensions I use. Lazarus Form Recovery is a great one that saves me time if I accidentally go away from a form. So if I'm typing a reply and I click a button and I go to another page, this will actually save my form response, so I can just go back and re-add the coding back in. It saved me a lot of times from losing like a page of a reply to someone. I can then just go in and find that in my in the menu they have and put it right back in the form, so I don't lose anything. And clippings, it's only Firefox, but it allows me to say predefined responses and then right-click on the menu in the box, and I can select what I want, and it puts the text into the thing. Similar things to that, like Text Expander. I don't like Text Expander because I forget all the little combinations I use for the words, and there's so many in there. So I just like to find a list and then just input it that way. And the final thing that I've used as a tool is actually Slack. We use it a lot of events calendar, obviously, to communicate, but even from me personally, I've made a centralized location for all my support issues. I import my plugin support RSS feed from WordPress.org, and so that I know when someone has a support issue, I can just check one place. If you pay for a version of Slack now, you can actually import emails into a channel, and then form entries. It's another thing that saved me. I accidentally screwed up my email, and I wasn't getting any from my website, and people sent support issues to me, and I wasn't getting them, but in Slack, it showed that I had entries from Gravity forums, and I was able to help those people instead of being like, oh, I didn't get your email. So it was a good excuse for me. So a little quick recap, supports feedback. So you can use it. It's not always going to be good feedback, but a lot of times those difficult customers do provide positive feedback, something that you could potentially change to help other people. Always be professional. Make sure you set your expectations. If you're having difficult customers, maybe the first thing you want to look at is set expectations of what you're actually providing to people. Learn from your customers, learn from these interactions. Maybe there's something there, maybe there's something not. One thing we are playing around with our support at the events calendar is trying to get everything we support over the next 3 weeks and organize it into a system that we can visualize and kind of categorize to see exactly what issues are the #1 issues. And it's actually surprising on that what actually is the #1 issue right now. We didn't expect it to be that, and it's something now we can help and address people. And finally, don't take shit from people. The customer isn't always right. So they are right a lot of times, but if they're going to be disrespectful, mean to you, or anything like that, you don't need to deal with those people. That's what a great refund policy is for. So that's it. Questions?
sort of parallel question. Do you use this negative feedback, these negative comments that you get from the market information system to tweak your SEO or to tweak your marketing so that you're getting better customers, you know, to avoid bad customers and help you? For example, just use different keywords to get different search terms.
I suppose you could. On my own personal plugin, I don't have time, and then the events counter, we never thought of it that way, but that's actually something that you probably could use. You can see what people are doing.
Any other questions for Brian? Yeah, go for it.
When do you switch between like what your average feature would be versus when you want to get into customization? Where's that line for you?
The line, if we ship the feature, we support it. CSS is a customization. If you want to move a title around, we provide guides and stuff for that to help people out. We'll try to give you an easy way to do it, but it really is a customization. So we'll help you get started. I mean, some customizations, so it depends. If it's an easy customization, we'll always try to help you get started if you're a paying customer. If it's a complex customization, some people ask. Someone asked, how do I turn the events calendar into a standalone product? And then they asked me what PHP was. Okay, I'm not gonna help them get started. There's no, even if they knew what PHP was, I can't help you get started on that. That's a $100,000 problem to solve. So, I mean, that's kind of like the extreme example. So.
Thank you very much. Let's take it. Let's take a 10-minute break. There's a whole fresh batch of pizza back there. So if you could do us a huge favor and go eat it, that would be terrific. Swain will be up next talking about deployments. So don't sneak out. There's plenty of alcohol still. Take a bathroom break, get some food, and come back in 10 minutes. We'll get started. Thank you.
We got a walk-in. Next time. You have to tell Casey what you're doing. Casey, yeah, Casey, you want to talk? I should have. But it might be the liquor talking.
Let's get this sauce up next time.
That's good stuff, right?
Yeah, comment us somewhere, or we'll talk. Oh no.
I think it's predates HTML. Nice job, man.
You're unrivaled enthusiasm, like messaging you or tagging my family.
That's how I am.
Right. No, I really appreciate it. I was like, oh, so it's interested. Well, great. No, and I have this skepticism. We'll see how it goes. And it did open up the idea of Airbnb.
Oh, yeah.
It's really cheap.
My first great.
Like for a week-long stay, like I don't. If there's some flexible time, like I can stay a week or 2 weeks. Yeah, I checked out my first apartment today. It was fine. And I said, oh, I don't know. No, I hope not. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. I have to be here to meet them and check it out.
Are you in the
So in the upper right hand corner, look for visual or text. You should click on visual. I know that they did make a change a year ago where they stripped some of the styling out of the Word document that you guys have copy and paste in. So that might be what's happening too. That's actually how I met. I just felt that certain numbers.
So yeah, if you're using only how to try something different, that we had some issue earlier, we're good. And we're like previous on the browser. So I'm suddenly very well for the next 2 weeks. And super busy, like a lot of things I want to work on. Those prison projects right now.
Yeah, I want to find out more about that.
Actually, yeah. College class. No, there you go. You have to keep these low, sometimes you have to keep them. We can do a general introduction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really easy last name. It's all good. Let's move forward.
Welcome back, everyone. We're starting now the second part of WordPressDC. If I can get everybody to those seats. Leland, you're a co-organizer, if you wouldn't mind helping people. Thank you, sir. Yep, you can just have people sit. Lead by example. This doesn't reflect that well. All right, well, we'll get started right away. So, second speech we have tonight is about deployment. It's titled Deployments. Let Me Count the Ways. It's by Swain Strickland. Swain is a WordPress developer full-time at the Association of Schools and Programs of Public Health. And he had to figure out how to do this internally. And this is a lot of the lessons that he's figured out on his own. Hopefully saving you a lot of time and grief. So if we can put our hands together for Swain.
You guys hear me okay? Great. So like I said, my name is Swain Strickland. Just a couple of years ago, I was in a different career and living in Florida and started freelancing and eventually got into WordPress and made my way up here because family lives here. And so now I'm doing this full time. So I guess that's kind of a little bit of my story. Deployment, let me count the ways I'm going to be covering deployment. Obviously, I thought about trying to make this a cool Shakespeare-themed talk, but this is all Shakespeare I know. So we're going to change it to something else in a second. So when I first got here, one of the first things our organization was doing was like taking all their assets and moving them to the cloud because they were on an internal server. And likewise, they were switching to WordPress for all their front-end stuff from Cold Fusion. And so, you know, what's nice about being there is I had plenty of time, but they were like, look, figure this out for us, set up our servers and provision them and figure out how to do deployments using Git and all that stuff. And I said, great, you know, that sounds good. We'll see what they can do. So I'm not going to go deep into provisioning today, but you know, there are a lot of good resources out there. I think everyone should just try to do it at least once, just to kind of know if you've never done it. The DigitalOcean documentation, they will like walk you through perfectly how to set up a server, $5, set up a WordPress site, and like that's how I host all my stuff on now because it's $5. Now I've learned how to do it, but everybody should just try to do it, and it's pretty great. And they also charge by like the hour, so you don't even get charged the whole month if you bring it down. And then there's stuff on WordPress TV about, you know, provisioning your server, your caching, all that stuff, and that was pretty nice. Servers for Hackers is a website. This guy puts out a book. He has all these videos, and he will walk you through not only just setting it up, but like adding all the stuff you really need to have. That if you're new like I was, I didn't know you need to rotate your logs. I didn't know you need to do all these weird things that wouldn't occur to me. And then the last thing I would say look at is Roots Trellis. So Roots is a WordPress open source project. You can check it out on GitHub, and they have good documentation. But one neat thing that they've added more recently was Trellis, which is a set of Ansible playbooks. And I'll get into a little bit about Ansible and show you how it works. But what's nice is not only will it do your local Vagrant environment, which I think we just talked about last month, but the same setup will provision your dev, staging, and production servers, and they will be secure and high performance. So it's a pretty nice setup once you get used to it. But I will warn you, if you go down this path, you will get very angry at times. I had a lot of frustrating days. I may or may not wanted to strangle a puppy. Jim Gaffigan said it's not me, so let the record show that. And then, so we're going to talk about, but today I'm going to talk about deployments and kind of give you just like a taste of what different options there are out there, because this is what I wish I had. I kind of had to root around for all the different options. So hopefully this will be like a broad, this is one category, this is what it would be like to choose this. So we're going to kind of assume you want to version control your stuff in GitHub, Bitbucket, anywhere, and you want to be able to deploy from that. So, so I broke this down into categories, and I'm kind of using my puppy methodology for rating how hard this is. So depending on how twisted your mind is, this is either how much you will want to strangle a puppy by doing this, or how much you need a joy from seeing these puppies. So 1 puppy is kind of hard, 2 puppies is you could be really frustrated, and 3 puppies is, well, it can be challenging, it can be frustrating. So hosted options. There's a few good hosted options out there. I've personally used WP Engine and SiteGround, but just from doing some research before this talk, it looks like Pantheon has a really nice setup. WordPress VIP obviously has really, really nice stuff with like personal code reviews and things. And AWS Beanstalk has some kind of setup as well that manages your whole app. So I'm going to give you a little taste of this just by showing you how WP Engine works, in case you want to go down this route. So this would be, like if you have a WP Engine site, this would be in your admin dashboard. And what I'm kind of pointing out here is like, they're going to handle everything for you. So everybody, of course, likes to have a staging site, especially if you're constantly doing work on a site. You want to be able to show the client, but you don't want it to show up in production. So all you have to do is click this button. They copy your site and give you a new URL. And now you have a whole site to work with. And you can change it, do anything. And technically, you could like make a whole improvement and then click the next button, copy site staging to live, and now you have everything you just built in staging and live. I mean, that doesn't always work because sometimes they get out of sync, but it's a pretty nice deal. So, I mean, that's just from the provisioning standpoint, but just from the deployment standpoint, it's really nice and easy. I'm going to show you, a basic deployment with them. All you have to do is have a Git repo of your site. You've version controlled it. Maybe you're using the desktop, GitHub desktop or something like that. But all you have to do is have, like right here, I'm in a WordPress site, and you can see I'm on the master branch of the repo. And I screencasted these, so I didn't actually do it. You'll see I have engine production, engine staging. So all I have to do is enter in this command, git push engine staging master, and that's the master branch that I'm on, and press it, and boom, you've now deployed whatever changes you've deployed. And the really nice thing, you unfortunately have to watch this, is they check every file to make sure there's no PHP syntax errors, there's no problems with what you've pushed up. So that's something like you're not going to get on your own. You're going to have to do it yourself somehow. But WP Engine provides this. They do a few other things you'll see at the end, just kind of checking everything, making sure it's nice, doing all the stuff you would have to set up on your own. So I have to say, I mean, if you can afford WP Engine or something like it, it's a joy to work with. I heartily recommend it. You don't have to haggle with all the problems. That's why they got 0 puppies on the puppy scale. So you'll see it's all complete right there. And I mean, that's really nice, I think. So moving on from this, I guess you'll see it's doing a few little things. So this is what you get here. And sometimes it's faster once you've done it once or twice. But it checks all these things for you, and then you're good. And now you can go to the URL they gave you and see what you put in staging. So I really like working with that. Heartily recommend. SiteGround has something similar. Pantheon does too. So the next step is WordPress plugins. And these, at first you might think this is easier to work with because you're doing it through the WordPress admin area. But some of these require some extra setup. So I just started working with a site that uses Revisor. And I want to kind of show you what that looks like. This is the dashboard you get when you go to the Revisor area. And you can kind of see all the kind of commits that have happened, that have been pulled into the site. And you have this little thing, like if there were outstanding commits, you would be able to click that button and pull changes. And then let's say someone else is working on the site from their computer and they push them up to GitHub or Bitbucket. All you have to do is press that button and now you have it in your site. And of course, that's pretty nice on its own, but what really stands out to me is this. You can update, so it makes your site a Git repo of its own. And so if you update a plugin from the admin area, you can then, and let's say you're version controlling all your plugins, you can then make a commit from the admin area and push it. So where this really can be nice is, one of the big challenges is do you version control all your plugins? And let's say you're doing that. I mean, you have to test it out, then make the change on your site, and then push them up to make sure they don't break anything, or whatever it may be. But here, you can do it from the admin panel. You can update your plugin and say, oh, everything's working, and make the commit. Or if you decide, oh, this plugin broke because something's wrong with it, there's a way in Revisor to revert back to the way it was set up before. So it's kind of nice in that way. I mean, it works for some people's workflow, it may not work for yours, but I kind of like that. That's not what I'm working on right now, Graham. The next one is really interesting, I think. It's called VersionPress, and they do something unique. It's similar to Revisor. It's maybe a little more user-friendly in ways. Like, you look at this admin panel here, and you can see it tracks every single thing you can do on the site. And this actually might be good for your clients. They can go here and say, oh, whatever I did was bad. I'm going to undo it. Now, it might be bad for your clients because who knows what they'll undo. I don't know. But it's pretty neat that you can do that. And the real kicker is, what separates this from anything that's really out there that I can tell, is it version controls your database. So it's like, this is my Bitbucket repo of everything. And you can see this is my WP content. They add this directory, VPDB. And you can see it's version controlling your database. And what's unique about this, I mean, number one, you can roll back actual changes to your database. Like, someone published a post, they didn't mean to do that. You can undo it, or you can go back to a certain time where those posts didn't exist, or whatever it may be. So that alone is pretty unique. But the real thing that they promise that's pretty unique is merging databases together. So let's say you have a production site that regularly spits out content. They're adding something every day. Meanwhile, you're building a new feature with content that you're putting in, or they're putting in for you, on another staging site. Well, what VersionPress says that you can do is technically enter a command and merge those two together so that the database will, make the IDs of all the posts correctly, and everything will be added. So everything will just kind of work perfectly for you. Now, I want to add that I didn't get this fully set up. They were kind enough to let me demo it a little bit. It does cost money. But I will warn you, to get this working, you have to use WP CLI and issue a command. They have a few commands built in for you, and you have to be able to issue them. Now, I think in the future, they're probably going to build that into their admin panel, and this could be the future of version control and management. I mean, everything depends, of course, on your situation. Version controlling a database that's huge, I mean, that might be crazy. I have no idea. But it's something worth keeping an eye on. So I absolutely think it's worth looking at some of those options. So the next kind of category are services. So there are a variety of services that provide options, and they range on trouble to set up. And it just kind of depends on your experience. I mean, some of you, it might be easy to set these up. Some of you, if you haven't done any server stuff, it could be frustrating. So AWS Code Deploy, Amazon has their thing. DeployBot is really big. CodeShip you may have heard of, and Travis. Those things do continuous integration. So if you have some kind of testing suite, it'll run. You push to whatever the repo, it'll run all the tests, and if they pass, it'll deploy for you. But if you're at that point, you probably can handle all that yourself. But what I wanted to show was DeployBot. And this is a service you set up, you kind of link them to your server, and they give you a nice dashboard to deploy your app anywhere. And for some people, this might be a good thing. I mean, maybe you want, maybe the project manager wants to deploy, or who knows what the system may be. But it's really full featured. You can hook into all kinds of things they have. But so basically, you hook them up to your site, you click deploy, it keeps a log of everything, which might be nice. So it can work well, but it can be a little challenging to set up if you don't know how to do it. So I'll show you, let's say this is me. I set up a site, I deployed. It's kind of showing you deploying right here, and it lets you know when it has. So when you get to here, you kind of see this is what it deployed. I'll give you a little basics of this, and we're going to look into it a little bit more. But basically, there are a couple different ways deployments work with version control. Either the site you're deploying is a Git repo itself, which is what some of those plugins did, or it kind of creates this little setup for you, which is there's a releases folder. You can't see my mouse. And they timestamp it by the date and time you deployed. So what you deployed is in this releases folder, and it might keep 5 of them, 5 of your last deployments. And what's nice about this is they'll run your deployment, and then the last thing that happens is where you see current, it points to the last deployment. So what's cool is if this fails, like let's say your deployment messed up, it just doesn't do that last thing, and it doesn't mess up your site in any way. The other nice thing is most of these have a little command called roll back, and it'll just point current to the one you last deployed. So I mean, I can answer some questions in a little bit if that doesn't make sense. In the shared folder, you kind of keep all the things you don't want to be redeploying, so like your passwords, and then your uploads folder of all your media, you don't want that version controlled. So that goes there. So this is kind of an example of DeployBot. It might be a good thing for you. I looked into it, but a lot of our stuff is behind the VPN. So this isn't going to work if any of your like dev or staging sites are behind the VPN. So the last thing is kind of command line tools. And the one I decided on originally was Capistrano. There were a couple guys that were doing Ruby there and just kind of made sense, and there were a lot of good instructions. I will say that with Capistrano 3, it is pretty dead simple to set up. Like there's only a couple things you add, like this is the IP address of my server, this is the key, my password or key you're gonna do, and then you set it up for each of your dev, staging, whatever production site you have. So there's just a couple of pages, and then you run a command. I'll show you a little example of what that looks like. So you're here, let's say you made a change. You see, oh, I modified the footer file. I'm going to add it. I'm going to commit it and push it up to my repo. And now I want to deploy it. It's important you do this because what it does is it deploys from your copy in GitHub or Bitbucket or wherever it is. It doesn't deploy from yours, which can be nice, actually. So I run this command, cap dev deploy. I put in the branch I want it to deploy, or you could put in a tag number that you've tagged it. Then boom, it made a deployment. That simple. And so, and then it gives you the same kind of file structure I showed you before. There's the releases that I have, the last 5 releases. It points to the latest one and current. And then share, you'll see like some of the things that I don't want deployed. So, this is really nice. It works really easy. It's very easy to set up. You'll find a lot of documentation online, but people have been doing this the last few years with WordPress. I think there's some talks on WordPress TV. But it works really well. I think I enjoy it. It requires a little bit of setup, but if you're setting up servers at all, you'll be able to figure it out. The last thing I want to mention is Ansible. So this is the last thing I've been playing around in what I'm moving our organization to. And like I mentioned before, there's this great open source project called Roots, and they've developed Ansible playbooks, and I'm going to kind of show you what those are. But what's neat about this is you can see this is a Git repo, and basically I can put all of our sites, all of our WordPress sites, and we're going to be adding more, and then just the few Ansible documents I need to have a local environment. Like I can clone this down, run a couple commands, and then have all of our sites on a local dev environment using Vagrant. And then with a couple more commands, I can provision a server from scratch and deploy. So it's pretty neat if it fits your situation. And for me and what we're doing, I think it works really well. So just a little bit of background about what Ansible does is you may have heard of something like Chef or Puppet. And basically that lets you kind of determine your infrastructure, your servers, and what they look like and what's on them by code, instead of actually going in and saving an image or having a big shell script that goes and downloads all the things for you, which can also work well. But what's neat about this is it's very, once you learn kind of how they work, it's very just directive. You say, like, for instance, here's a role, PHP, and there's a PHP folder you'll see over there with a few little commands that say, hey, I want PHP version 5.6. I want you to download it and make sure it's there. And so you run one command, it runs through this whole thing and makes sure everything's on your server. So you do it and you're basically good to go. I'll show you a little example in a second. But what's nice about this, I should mention, is I think the word is idempotent. I don't know. But what's cool about it is, like, let's say you, like, something's wrong with your server, or you make a change, you make one little change. Well, and you run the command again, it'll check on your server the difference between what you did on your files and what's on your server, and it'll only change what you've changed. So that's nice because it's easy to update, but also like, let's say something's wrong with your server, if something's crashed, just run the command, it's gonna just fix what needs to be fixed. I mean, it's not foolproof, but it's a pretty nice situation. So here's an example of what it would look like. So I run this command, Ansible playbook, I tell them I want it to be my dev server, and then use that file we were just looking at, server.yaml. And when you see I press this, this is what I've already done. Otherwise, it would probably take like 3 minutes to do. This one's going to go a lot faster, hopefully. Or, I gotta press the button. All right, let's see. So it kind of like checks into your server, make sure you're logged in appropriately, you have the right keys, and then this part takes just a second, and then you'll see how it basically installs every single thing you would need to have a good, solid WordPress setup. What's great about this, I should add, is that this project is pretty big, and there's a lot of smart people working on it, so you know that you're getting like the best in security. I mean, I'm sure it's not perfect, but compared to what I originally set up, and then what I'm now using with this, like I've learned a whole lot from just reading through their Ansible files about what I actually should use in a server and what would make it good and secure and all those types of things. So you can see this is what it looks like if you're provisioning a server. When it says OK, it means, look, you've already done this, it's already running fine. So it's not going to change anything. So this maybe changes one little thing, like a key that's generated, but otherwise it's not going to change anything because my dev server has already been provisioned. I just wanted to do it fast. So you've provisioned a whole server in one command, and now you're going to deploy a site in another command.
The screen recording's genius.
Thanks, I heard it on a podcast. Someone was like, anyway. So done. Okay, so now it's up and running. You've done it. And so I mean, I really like this. I think it can be neat. You do need to like have some experience if you need to troubleshoot. They are working on making it dead simple if you're using DigitalOcean. So if you're interested in just like trying it with DigitalOcean, they have an awesome example project. It shouldn't be too hard to work out, especially if you have any experience with it. And what's nice, like if you, like I work full time, but I do a little bit of freelancing. You know, I can host all my dev sites for $5 a month. And it's just pretty easy and nice. And I host my blog that no one goes to. So this can be a good option for a lot of people for stuff like that. So that kind of rounds out like the different kind of categories that are open to you. I mean, I didn't go into every single one, but like what can you really learn in 20 minutes? So I figured I'd give you a flavor for all of them. The last thing that's pretty big is migrating the database. I'll just say that I use WP Migrate DB Pro. It works pretty well. Occasionally there's problems if you're uploading a gajillion things, but most of the times you can work it out. If you're server inclined, I mean, WP CLI can do some neat things as far as importing a database in just a quick command. It can do a lot of other things too, but if you're server inclined, you probably already know about it. And then lastly, like, version press, I think there's a lot of potential there. I will have to mess with it a little bit more, but I think it's worth checking out. WP All Import Pro is great at migrating content from different things over to a site. It can do a lot of things, so I'm still exploring that. I guess I should add that no puppies are harmed than learning how to do this stuff. So that's mostly it. Are there any questions or concerns about puppies that you'd like me to cover?
Which one's your favorite?
So, I mean, I was using Capistrano for a long time, and what's nice is once you have it working, it's just so easy to use whatever you have working, and it worked for us. But now that I'm moving into this Ansible world, if you have to manage a server and deploy, like you might as well just do it all together. I mean, being able to like clone down everything and have it all working in no time is pretty nice. So, I mean, if I was even better, I'm sure Docker can do better things. I don't know, but there's just a lot of like having that open source project of Ansible and the support around it. It's just really nice. So that's what I'm using. But if the project was different, I mean, it's probably not worth. Like if I could just choose, I would use WP Engine probably, but it's pretty expensive depending on your needs. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any, are there any of these resources that you would suggest for a team? So you're having multiple people trying to provision development environments, work with staging and production environments?
Yeah, I mean, I think Trellis, the Ansible Trellis project can be really good, because the nice thing is, I mean, especially from the server side, what's nice is any change to the server is done in code and version control. Whereas, like, let's say you're having some issue and you make some small change on the server, how else is anybody going to know unless you save an image of it and make sure you label it appropriately? So especially if you're involved in like more server stuff, then I could see that as being great. Otherwise, like if it's just in regards to deploying, I think almost all of the solutions work fine, because they're all Git version control related, so you can kind of tell what people have done or not done. I guess one thing you can do is you can hook up some of these deployments to like Slack channel. I've heard of people where you deploy and then multiple people have to like enter a command in Slack before it will actually deploy it. So I mean, if you really have a team that needs like checks and balances, but you want to be fast, that seems like a pretty cool solution, but I can't say I've done it. I think it's pretty easy to set up a notification with Capistrano in Slack, or even like DeployBot, where it just lets you know that somebody deployed. Like that's pretty easy to set up. I think setting up like the checks and balances would be a little harder.
I had a question. You were talking about WP Engine. I just want to be a pain in the butt. So
Sure.
you mentioned SiteGround, and a lot of other, I guess, host services are doing it. I use DreamHost, and
Okay.
I noticed they have something called DreamSite. What differences have you seen?
So I tried, because I didn't want to leave people out of this, so I tried to go to almost all the popular sites to see if they had true like Git deployment setups, so that it's version control to deployment. And these are the ones where it was like they were literally helping you do it. The other ones provide, like, they will let you do it. Like, you can run Capistrano deploys, you can have an SSH key that lets you into the server. Most of the sites will let you do deployments. So, I mean, it's not a knock on them in any way. Like, if you know how to do it, you can do it. But I would say those, like, I might be wrong in my terms, but like some people call those managed hosting. Right. So like they actively are involved in your WordPress deployment. And I know that, I mean, from experience, I know WP Engine is very active involved, and it costs. But some of the other ones are really great, especially if, but they're not necessarily going to handle the Git deployments for you. They're not going to like make it really easy. So I think that's the difference. I mean, I tried to look at DreamHost. I mean, maybe they have something, but it looked like, of course, they let you do it, but it's not like something that's set up from scratch.
It's all about $5 to $10 cheaper than
right.
WP Engine.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they probably provide a great value. I think it's probably, both are probably fair. Like WP Engine does some really nice things I didn't know about. Like they'll email you that this plugin needs to be updated and it's going to be updated, and or else there's a problem. So, I mean, they are very actively involved, whereas maybe the other one is or not, I don't know. But, I mean, I'm sure they also provide like a great service and it's fast and all of those things. So I can't say I have like a strong opinion about different hosts. I personally used Bluehost, SiteGround, and WP Engine at work. So those are the ones I can really talk about.
One last question.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, because I thought of, you familiar with Synthesis?
I did read their documentation a little bit. I came across their website. It looks like, once again, it looks like a great host.
It's Studio Press, yeah.
Oh, it's Studio. Oh, that's theirs.
It's the Rainmaker thing.
Yeah, so Rainmaker is very managed. I don't know about how their deployments work. Maybe I should have looked. I've used Genesis stuff, but I don't think they have this whole deployment method set up for you. I think they want to like handle everything for you, which is great for some people. Yeah. I think it's probably great for some people, but my never mind. Not going to give my personal opinion. Yeah. It seems like hosting is a good way to make money for these companies. I'll say that. I mean, I think they're all providing good service, but whatever. Anybody else? I think I saw another hand before. Yeah.
you didn't mention much about Pantheon. I don't know how much you looked into it, but I spoke to them a couple of years ago before they were actually in WordPress. They were like originally in Drupal only. But they had talked about doing what I think Mark was asking about, where they would just spin up a site on demand. And if you had like multiple devs working on something, they could spin something up, and then they talked about. I don't know.
Yeah, I will say, like, just reading through their stuff, it looks really great.
They're really smart.
Yeah, if I was like doing this again, I would look at them and give them a shot. I didn't look at pricing when looking at this. I don't know if they're cheaper than WP Engine or all of that kind of stuff. I just know they looked like they provided the most services comparable to WP Engine. Like, it looked very similar to me, and it looked really nice. So I don't know. Has anyone used Pantheon that can kind of talk about it? Okay. Yeah, I mean, it looks really nice just from what I read. I would want to use them or give it a shot if I could.
Yeah.
All right. We're good. Well, thank you for letting me talk.
I found this too.
Idempotent or idempotent.
Oh, so it's both.
It's thank you.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Swain, and thank you everybody for coming. Of course, thank you for Cheeto for providing the pizzas, and as always, Chief for providing the venue. We'll be here the third Tuesday of next month, as always, starting at 6:30. A couple quick announcements. We got WordPress New York coming up in 2 weeks, Halloween weekend. I think there's still tickets available for that. WordPress US, I don't know if there's tickets available for that, but that's coming up early December. WordCamps are like this, but they're a weekend-long thing, and those are two pretty big international ones. You'll meet a lot of great people and learn a lot of great things. So check out both of those. We always do what I call hiring and firings, but really it's like hiring and looking for work. So if you're looking for work, you're a freelancer or anything else, now's a good time to stand up and introduce yourself and give your little pitch. Looking for work? Anybody? Sorry.
We're hiring.
Good night. Hold your horses. All right. Yeah. Anybody looking for work? Okay. Now hiring. Okay, go ahead.
We're hiring 2 people. If anyone wants to job. Cat, Center for American Progress.
A little spiel about maybe the projects or your related.
We're looking for mainly just like a front-end developer. I started 2 weeks ago. I'm the lead developer, so we're just kind of looking for mainly a front-end developer, maybe a back-end developer. They do Think Progress and a bunch of little sites, little mini sites and things like that. So,
cool. As always, it's good to speak to the crowd, but you're going to want to post this either in the comments or in the forum on the meetup, because then it's publicly available for everyone to see, and the crowd sort of know too. So, Slim Pickens. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, my name is Ben Osterauer. I'm the owner and creative director of Light Animated here in DC. And we do a lot of work both in branding and WordPress design and development. We have a range of different clients, a lot of Democratic Party clients, a lot of mid to large-sized nonprofits and organizations. We're looking for folks who want to join a small but really creative and growing team. We're looking for WordPress developers, front-end developers, folks who love to write CSS and HTML and JS, freelancers as well. So we have full-time salary benefit positions and freelance positions.
Cool. Thank you. Anybody else? Did you guys hire all? Yeah, we hired you. Chief actually did hire me. Hey. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm with a think tank called American Action Forum, and we're currently looking to convert from Expression Engine to WordPress. We're looking for a we're looking for a firm that'll help us do that and then manage the site going forward and a bunch of sites.
We'll tap you for 2017 or 2018 talk. 2019 will be conservative about the timeline. Cool. Anybody else? I think that wraps it up. Thank you so much for coming. We'll see you next month.
let me get my card signed. By any chance have a USB printer? Because I'm new to the city. If I throw the card by myself, I'll get lost.
Yeah. Hold on a second. For what do you need? Like a micro?
Yeah, the Samsung, so it's like micro and the other one.